to say a big welcome to everyone and thank you for joining us for this, which I believe is our 32nd IEP Live Learn Lunch. Today we're going to be looking at CPD Resilience through Change, and Jane is going to take us through that. It's going to be a great session. It's going to be a practical session, and we're all going to leave this session having learned something, which is always our aim on the Live Learn Lunch. As ever, we have more sessions coming up over the following weeks. And I will tell you a little bit more about those sessions at the end of our webinar today. But in the meantime, and with no further ado, I'd like to pass you over to Jane Cordell, who will be taking us through today's session. Over to you, Jane.
Good afternoon to you all. I just turned the afternoon. It's lovely to have this opportunity to work with you. Thank you to Helen for the fantastic production of this. How fantastic to have her support. And it's the first time that our social enterprise Result CIC has worked with the Institute of Employability professionals. We're delighted to be doing so. So my name is Jane Cordell. I'm a co-director of Result CIC. We call ourselves confidently different. We provide coaching and training to anybody who feels pushed out, marginalised, excluded. And at the moment, we're running a programme for civil servants with disabilities who are about to go into senior level, and we're also about to start a programme for migrant refugees. We've run programmes for the BBC, local charities, wide-ranging. So, first thing to mention is the very handsome man with the beard, Anthony Bradshaw. It looks a little bit like the Secret Service. Can you see his earpiece? He's not the Secret Service, should be pleased to know, but he's my lip speaker. Whoa, what's that? Lip speaker, you heard me right. So Helen mentioned I'm deaf, and that will be part of my case study. But to access what you're saying, Tony, Anthony, Sunday name, will be silently repeating everything in a lip-readable way. It's well worth investigating as employability professionals if you don't know what lip speakers do. And he adds in a few signs as well. So first question to you, and can you raise your hands? Because I'm deaf, I don't really hear my own voice. I am to be as clear as possible. Is anybody struggling with audio or anything else at the moment? Could you put your hand up? Maybe use the icon or put your hand up. Any issues? Or shout to Helen.
We've got no issues. No one's got any issues, Jane. We're all good.
Wonderful. Wonderful, thank you. So let's have a look at what we're doing today. I'm really looking forward to this. Helen, could you have the next slide? So here's a simple plan, 3 parts. First of all, personal case study in resilience. Then you will do an exercise. You'll need a notepad or some way of recording your thoughts. Self-coaching. I'll take you through some meditative questions for you to consider an issue that may be creating a barrier for your resilience. And at the end, I thought you would find it useful to have about 10, 12 minutes breakout just to process what you may have learned. Okay, any questions either in chat or anybody wants to shout out? Questions about the format, does it sound okay?
No questions have come in. I'll let you know if anything comes in, Jane.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's get going. We're on time. This is brilliant. I don't think I've ever had a webinar. It's been on time. Must be Helen's influence. So starting with the resilience case study, we're looking at employment in particular. Helen, can we have the next slide, please? So what I've chosen to do in the case study, which is mine, is my provider of a snapshot of my own experiences, particularly focusing on changes and how you deal with them. The topic, resilience through change. I've experienced significant changes in my life. I thought perhaps it would be useful to focus on the employment sphere. Why? Because work has kept me sane and it's kept me going, and I have a passion for the value of meaningful work. So that's the background. Okay, the next slide starts with, it's mainly visuals. The first visual, please. The next visual, Helen. Thank you. So that's a viola, a bigger version of a violin. And I put that image because I'm a musician. That was my first job. I was a musician in an orchestra. I had good hearing then. I had perfect pitch. I could tell you what note something was. The second slide is about the big change that came. So as a musician, I've then used the symbol for deafness, learning that I was becoming profoundly deaf in my early 20s. Felt as if the most important thing in my life was being surgically removed. Of course, not only was music my job at that time, it was my soul. It's like having my soul removed. I can't describe how tough that was. But what saved me was work, and human beings are incredibly resilient and adaptable. And though music seemed to have disappeared, I still had work. I had skills. I started to work as a teacher by then. The next slide shows my next job. It's the best image I could find. That's supposed to be an editor working away online. I was working and continuing to work as a teacher of English as a foreign language, lip reading, no support at that point, no disability discrimination act. And I decided I wanted to move sideways and gain new skills, but remain within the education sphere. So I looked for, in a way, more junior jobs, starter jobs as an editor, and started learning to be an editor. Unfortunately, during that period, that was the first time I experienced major discrimination as a deaf person. And I'd applied for a second editing job with a big university. I'll spell their blushes. I did well. It was a very tough application process and involving written tests, thorough interviews, various types of testing. The interview went very well, and they said, 2 days you'll get the results. But it wasn't 2 days. Time went on and on and on. In the end, it was 2 months before I got the result of the job interview. Call me naive, but I thought, why is this happening? But after 2 months, they offered me the job. That's very strange. I thought, great job. Better salary, prospects, I want to do this work. I took the job, and only later, among colleagues on my team, did I discover the reason for the delay, which had been the senior manager had tried to block the appointment. So it was a hard thing to hear. So I realised that the senior manager was actively didn't want, as she put it, I don't want a deaf person working here. It's very difficult, whoever you are, whatever your individual characteristics, to hear something about yourself that you can't change, whether it's your sexuality, your disability, your race, your gender, and that being given as a reason to not employ you. That was tough, really tough. And eventually, a couple of years, I decided I needed to try to move into a job where I could thrive. And we can have the final image, please, Helen. It's my surprise, that's the Polish flag, good heavens. So I was actively looking for somewhere that seemed to have positive diversity policies. And I saw an advert in the newspaper for the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. It's now called Foreign Commonwealth Development Office. It's merged with David. But I liked the recruitment policy, which was we want people to represent modern Britain with management skills, languages. I put the Polish flag up because as it happened when I'd worked as a musician and just after that, I'd met a highly inappropriate boyfriend who was Polish and ended up learning the basics of Polish language before I started to become deaf. So I was able to offer that during the recruitment process. And I was constructively naive. I went through this acres and acres of tests and interviews and role plays. It was tough stuff, but interesting. And ended up being offered a role working there for 10 years. And my foreign posting drew on my prior game skills because I spoke some Polish. They needed somebody with some Polish language skills. And I had to get over the concern that I was deaf. I was the only candidate who got given an extra language test. Ended up doing wonderful posting in charge of the political and military team there. A team of about 12 individuals. And it was superb, really, really used all my skills. I could thrive there, I felt. And on top of my day job, I was doing advocacy work for disability rights, speaking for the UK, making brilliant, strong relationships with Polish politicians, and in a way, embodying the values of the UK. When, towards the end of that posting, I was successful after, I think, 8 internal interviews for a second posting to become a deputy ambassador that would have been in Kazakhstan. It's a less popular place, about -40 in winter. When that happened, I was over the moon. I really felt that maybe the barriers to a deaf professional were not as high as I thought. Sadly, the timing globally was not good. It was at the start of the major financial crisis. And 3 weeks after receiving a job offer, I received another letter from HR, which was basically saying, you haven't got this job, we're not sure, because of the cost of your support, like Tony, who's supporting me today. So it looked as though this was going to be an even bigger challenge than the one about the previous job, what to do. I felt the worst thing. I felt like a total hypocrite. I'd been speaking for equal rights and our wonderful legislation and systems. And then I had to say to my Polish counterparts, actually, I can't do this job. And they said, why? So I'm going to pause the story, then leave you in suspense a little bit, and just step back. The next slide, Helen, please. It's got some challenges. I try to summarize the challenge who's facing. Here we go. Thank you. The first one is just flying on there. I had to ask myself, and probably it's a question you as employability professionals, your clients, may ask. Who are you exactly if your professional role changes or, as in my case, disappears? A strong sense of loss of identity. The second point, please. How can you keep valuing your skills and experience in adversity during a period of tumultuous change like this? Maybe after the first point, if you feel you've lost your job or it's going to be, you're being undermined. How can you make sure you don't? You preserve a sense of your skills and your self-esteem. Third point, please. This is looking forward, but when you're in that more vulnerable position, facing such challenges, it's very, very important to be able to see ahead in a positive way. How can you believe in a future a positive future that doesn't yet exist? Okay, for those of you who are visual, the next slide has a go at showing you how I felt. Some of you may know this from what's called spheres of influence. And the idea is that the circle in the middle is you. So the opaque, the turquoise circle in the middle is where you have control. Because when you're experiencing change and stress and challenges, control, a sense of control is important. Helen, could we have the headings? I think they're going to appear. Right, thank you very much. It's lovely to work with you. So on the left, at that point, I described in my story, the circle in the middle felt very small. I felt as though my world had gone out of control. I was once again being told, you can't do this because you're deaf or because of a reason linked to your deafness. And my second circle of influence felt very small, because when you feel threatened, your flight or fight brain kicks in. What felt dominant in my world when I was being discriminated against was that outer circle, no control. So it looks a bit like an eye, the picture on the left. I felt very hemmed in. It's very, very stressful experience, the whole range of things you would expect, mental health issues, lack of sleep, loss of weight, disorientation. It went on and on and on. But luckily, others saw me differently. So on the right, they saw me as having a lot of influence, knowing a lot of people, having built strong relationships, and having more decision-making power than I thought. So they saw me as having a smaller no control circle, and the encouragement I got from others to pursue the right course for me was vital. So the next slide, please, Helen. The learning. First of all, a symbol. So I took the hard decision to challenge my employer, which was the government, in a legal way with the support of the Equality and Human Rights Commission. And the first point that I learned, next point please, stay close to your values. I could not handle being seen as a hypocrite. I felt I had a role, not just as me, but as a role model to others. I had to challenge the decision. The second point, please. Despite it being difficult, I needed to hang on to my experience in order to actually look at what I'd done, gather it together, and also make myself value it, even though I felt others were totally devaluing it. Third point. I wrote my own job description, something I do now as a coach, and I think I realised that I was trying to squeeze myself into a framework that couldn't help me thrive. I was actually editing out bits of myself that were important, and I wanted to have a theoretical job description where I could put all of myself into it and really find it rewarding. Final point was about learning. That second image from before. People want to help you. It's okay to ask. You don't have to do everything alone. So the other images on this slide, Helen, if we could have the next three pictures of wonderful mentors. I work with all women, actually. We have Liz Sace from Disability Rights. We have Vicky Bowman, who's a mentor at the Foreign Office. And the lady in red there is Dame Julie Miller. People I asked, I plucked up the courage. I need support. I need mentors. And with their support, I was able to keep perspective on what was happening. Does anybody have any questions at this point?
We've not received any at the moment. If anyone does have any questions, do pop them in chat and I will make sure that Jane answers them. Jane, with this group, I'm used to our group. When they're really interested, it's very hard to get them to ask questions, but they'll have lots at the end, I'm sure.
Lovely, lovely, thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to give you a bonus case study. Thank you, Samantha. Emma's interested in writing a job description. Happy to chat about that. It's a very interesting process. So this is a photo from when our company was nominated for a lovely local award. And there's on the end there in the brown waistcoat, that's my colleague Hormos. And then if you could have the next image, please, Helen. There's a circle. So that gentleman next to me, he's called Sean, and I worked with him as his coach. He's deaf too. Can we just run through the bullet points, Helen? So Sean was a deaf BSL user, no speech. He had one employer, which was a Employ factory for over 20 years. Thank you. Next one. Next bullet. When I met him, which was actually through a DWP initiative to support people, he'd been made redundant from his Employ factory, and he was terrified. He was in a state of depression. He didn't look well, and really it was a challenge to work with him. I've just noticed Samantha's question. I'm going to come back to that. Thank you. It's a great question. I use the sign language I have on about level 2, and I had a support worker with me. So I worked with Sean, tried to work more directly and personally to find out what he needed. At that point, the job centre colleague was writing applications for him. He didn't even know what those jobs were because of the language barriers. Thank you. Next point. So the process of working with Sean as a very depressed and fearful deaf individual using primarily only sign language, was to get him to identify what he needed to learn. That was the key thing. When we first talked about this and using his network, Sean didn't know what a network was. We did images, drawing, signing, and he realised that there were other methods than the formal doing 20 job applications method. Thank you. Final bullet. I have to say, I think it's probably one of the proudest moments in my life when Sean walked in for one of his further coaching sessions, holding a letter inviting him to start his new job. And his new job he had obtained through somebody he knew in his network who were talking to them directly. And I was even prouder when less than 3 months later, he showed me another letter room up for a final coaching session, saying they'd decided to offer it to him permanently before the probation period had finished. It still gives me a thrill. I can feel the hairs on my arm going out that he did that. But the way Sean did that, he learned through the coaching process and self-discovery that what he needed was to learn more British Sign Language. That's something nobody would have guessed or advised him or guided him. He needed to guide himself. And he told me that he'd realised at school they'd been offered a very poor level of language. And so we arranged for him to get into an evening class where, of course, he was the star of the show. His confidence, his morale went through the roof. And it was that that triggered him being able to give of himself more. Okay, a couple of slides now. This is just for you, really. I want you to consider, because at the moment we're going through the most incredible roller coaster ride of change, and it can feel scary, frightening, difficult to look forward. It's difficult to support our clients. So in the usual range of things, Helen, can you click the next 2? Maybe that might be our usual range. We've got emotional range up the side. Time along the bottom, we have our ups and downs, right? Yeah, sure. The next slide is thinking about massive challenges. And can we have the next line, a red line in here? So the shaded area is normal times. And I think it's fair to say we're going through this type of roller coaster at the moment. I have already. So the good news, the heading I've put there, when you get through that, when you find a way, you deepen your emotional intelligence, your emotional range. Small things you keep in perspective. The challenges feel easier. We don't want this. We don't want to be massively challenged and to go right down beneath the bottom of the graph. But once we've done that, our resilience muscles are stronger. Okie dokie. So that's the end of the case. We had 1.5 case studies there, and time for a couple of questions. I know there's one already in chat. Samantha Butterworth, thank you for your question. So she asked about the job description. Is this for a job you like to do or the job you're currently doing, including all the extra bits we take on? Right, what I would usually do is ask people to write their dream job. So actually do an exercise where they consider all their experience, they audit what they're good at, what they love, but they think outside their current job. They look at their whole work history, family history, life history, things like this, changes, challenges, and get a very full picture, maybe through a mind map. And then, based on only that, not somebody else's idea of a job, yes, they put together a dream job, but what you can do, Samantha, is put it alongside another version if you're doing a job you quite enjoy. Have a go at doing what you say, add on some bits and do a comparison alongside. Did that answer the question? Or to come back to me? Any other questions before we move into your section of self-coaching?
We've had lots of comments about people loving the idea of writing their own job description and enjoying the talk so far. I suspect we're going to see lots of homemade job descriptions popping up. I've made a note of it too.
I think I've had all types of clients wanting to try that method, including some of my senior civil servants. Somebody I was coaching yesterday is doing a role and wants to get more from it. And she's found it really useful just to put pen to paper, because she said it feels like she's taking a level of control, which is important for her.
So we've had a couple more questions come in, Jane. One is from Neil, who says, what would you say are the positive ways to introduce these techniques to a whole team approach and not lose the team to other roles?
So just checking, so you're asking whether you could use it with the team. I don't see why not. I don't see why not if used it in an appropriate way, because it's about, like, if you're working with a team, it would then not just be about the individuals and their roles, but how you could actually work together more effectively, and how some people in the team could become more aware of the other skills, the additional skills which people bring. It's a good idea. There's a question from Dahlia.
Dahlia and says, people who are in crisis and in reality do not have much control or powerful connection can often feel unable to find the time to reflect. How can we best support these people?
Give them time to reflect. Dahlia, you're showing your wisdom, your experience that they need that capacity to reflect. We're going to do a reflective exercise now. If you have time with them, use it in a way which actually lets them deeply relax and reflect and feel they're in a safe environment where they're really being heard. The work of Nancy Klein, some of you may know Time to Think, and the associated with it is very interesting in that way. That giving people a chance to really be heard and using probing, gentle questions, a bit like coaching techniques, can be the best way. They will have those resources inside, but their instinct to protect themselves, their fear, will stop them from necessarily being able to appreciate them. It was the same for me. We shared the diagram.
So,
Val.
Yeah, Val has said people are
often being unaware.
Yeah, so people are often unaware of their capabilities and don't recognise their own skills, which I think we've, as coaches, we've all come across, haven't we? So I agree with that. Carl says, do you coach people without disabilities, Jane?
Oh yes, we coach human beings, yes. I mean, because my colleague and I happen to have disabilities, he has bipolar disorder. We use those positively in our work, but yes, we coach human beings, definitely. Usually human beings have had some kind of encounter with adversity. I'll leave it there, but everything, people with disabilities, yeah, me, individuals, people from low socioeconomic background, young people, you name it, people who've recently been made unemployed.
Excellent. So Neil said,
thank you, Neil, for your comment. Yes.
Yeah, so understanding and appreciation of each other and our roles and experiences would go some way to develop emotional intelligence and ultimately team resilience.
Yes.
And Dahlia has says, thank you, Jane. Clearly there is no substitute for being able to reflect. Came from Dahlia. I think we can agree with that.
I think guided reflection, people need support. I was lucky that I had that. I didn't actually run my legal case. I wanted to make that clear. I was unlucky because of the circumstances I was in, but being valued by the people I worked with, who I was with, and also developing that, making myself reflect, doing the things I know as a coach work really helps. So looking at the time, I'd like to take you on to the self-coach exercise, if that's okay. Taking what Dahlia said, she's right, there's no substitute for reflection. So first of all, as is unusual, but let's do this, please. Thinking especially about Dahlia's comment, I want you to be able to relax. And you can do this in 10 seconds. So I'm going to give you 10 seconds. If you can you take your right hand and place it near your heart, on your abdomen. And just let yourself breathe more slowly. Can you feel your breathing from your diaphragm? Can you feel the slow movement in and out? And if you feel your heart, maybe just noticing it starting to beat a little bit more slowly. and feel that peace. Okay, so I'm now going to ask you about 25 short questions. I was trying to hold that calm feeling, please, as you do this. I want to ask you to consider something you would like to change for yourself, whether it's personal or professional. No one will see your answers. It's just for you. Possibly not all the questions will be relevant to you. You grab those questions that feel useful to you. Take notes if you wish. Try to be really specific about the issue you're looking at and the way you're going to move forward. Don't worry about answering the questions too literally. They are prompts to help you think around the whole issue. Okay. So, first question. Please, can you think about something you would like to change, something would help you to feel stronger and get more enjoyment from life? Be very specific about the change. What exactly would you like to achieve? How will you know when you have achieved this? How will you know? Next question. Why is this important to you? Why is this issue important personally to you? What is the current situation as regards this issue for you? What's the current situation? Which facts about the issue are important? What are the relevant facts? What are your opinions about this issue? Facts are one thing. What are your opinions about the issue? Also, what are your feelings about it? Facts, opinions, feelings. What will happen if you don't tackle this? What will happen if you don't tackle this? What will be different if you do tackle it? What will be different if you do tackle it? Who else is involved? Who else is involved? What ways could you begin to tackle the issue? What ways could you begin to tackle the issue? What would you do if you had unlimited resources, time, money, people, ideas? What if those resources were unlimited? What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? What if you knew you could not fail? What if there were no barriers? What if there were no barriers? And now, think laterally. Take a step back. How else might you tackle the issue? How else could you tackle this issue? And what would your closest friend tell you to do? What about your closest friend? What would they tell you to do? So by now, I hope you should have at least a couple of options in front of you, things you could do. Please choose one of those options, one of the ways forward. What resources will you need? What resources? Money, time, people, ideas, optimism, resources. What's the first thing you need to do next to get this started? What's the first thing? Just one action. Thinking about that action, when will you do it? So the first action, when will you do it? Who could help you? When will you do it? Who could help you? We're almost finished, folks. What might stop you from taking that first action? What might stop you? What will you do if that barrier appears? Finally, if you take a scale from 1 to 10, how committed are you to carrying out that first action? 1 to 10, 1 is low. 10 is high. How committed are you? Be honest with yourselves. Final question. What could move your commitment closer to 10? Okay, so that's it for the self-coaching exercise. I hope you're all feeling you've had the opportunity to reflect and hold in your mind the thoughts that you had. And I would like you now, Helen will put you into automatic breakout groups. We have the next slide as well, Helen. Just what did you learn? Thank you, Carl, for the feedback there. The next slide, just asking what did you learn? So if you want to accept your breakout rooms, about 10 minutes, please. It's now 12:42. So if we come back at 12:52, 12:53, you'll be in 2s or 3s and enjoy the discussion. Managed the time well. I think I've benefited from Helen's excellent.
There you go. We're all back.
Production skills. Great. So the final slide is just an opportunity for you to tell us what did you learn. Here's some feedback. We'd love to know what you're taking away with you. The more we share, the more we learn. Happy to answer any questions. Who'd like to fire away? Over to you.
So, as we have Anthony with us today, I've actually set everyone so you can unmute yourself if you want. So if you did have a question for Jane, if you pop your hand up and I will come to you and you can ask that question direct. So please do pop your hand up or unmute yourself if you'd like to ask Jane a question based on today's content. Geraldine, I can see you've unmuted yourself, and Emma. So if we go to Geraldine first and then we'll come to Emma, if that's okay.
I was just talking to Neil, and very much said it's we're in such uncertain times. It's about encouraging and it's about honest conversations. And I think I put down, all of us, we are valuable and deserve to be valued, and it's our life skills and what we do and our knowledge. I'm working with a lot of people that are 50s at the moment, and they're saying, well, they only want to employ young, dynamic people. And I said, no, a team needs our age group.
Right.
They need our age group for life experience and some of the younger people, they haven't got so many role models. So, we can reach out to them. And we also forget that the jobs people are going into, they have a wide age group of customers as well. So you need that. And sometimes it's about encouraging what you are good at, because when people say, well, what do you do for a job? Well, I stack the shelves and I'm on the tills. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're delivering great customer service. You're a team, you're a team player, and it's about getting over it. It's about that recognition and the language we use. And that's what we, when we coach people, that's what we're trying to do, is just say, no, look at these skills you've got, and that you're not too old, it's not too late, whatever your age. I'm starting a new qualification in a couple of weeks' time. And I, over the summer, I was saying to Neil, I did a lot of Zoom training for myself, but it's also helping me with my residents. Stuff, emotional intelligence, making decisions, getting rid of those negative thoughts, and it really helped me. But it's now helping me how I'm now being able to my residents. So, but you have to be brave, and you have to be, and the reflection is sometimes very painful, but reflection and recognition are two really important things, I think, when we're dealing with people today.
Excellent. Thank you, Geraldine.
Wonderful
And
observations.
before, yeah, sorry for talking over you, Jane. And on the subject of older people, we are the IEP, we're actually working with the Centre for Better Ageing and putting together some content and some specialist support for advisors. So watch this space for some more specialist webinars and e-learning coming through. So it's great to hear that. Emma, you also wanted to make a contribution.
Yeah, it was just it wasn't a question so much as a something I've just noticed, that when we were doing that reflective statement, some people found it very difficult to find something to do, and some easy. So I don't know whether or not if you're a naturally reflective person, then that'll help. But actually, how difficult it might be sometimes to put anyone in that place. And they can't, you know, when we're talking about our clients or our participants and we're going through some goal-orientated questions with them, the kind of being rabbit in a headlight scenario where they can't necessarily pinpoint what they want to do. And maybe the way you've done it in terms of a more self-reflective thing might help those ideas come to the forefront.
Thank
you for that, Emma.
Okay, Richard.
So yes, Richard has said that reflecting
children, absolutely, we're all different and our styles are different. And I think you're right that some people it comes more naturally, but it's not so much as feeling I have to do X, Y, Z. I have to behave in a certain way. It's about finding a way to develop your own calm in a place, your own sense of who you are, your self-awareness. And keeping friendly with yourself, I think I'd use that phrase. So it's not necessarily doing a particular exercise, it's just finding a way to keep friendly with yourself and knowing yourself deeply.
Excellent. Ethelene has said it's been a very useful exercise in stopping our busy lives and taking time to reflect on what we have been putting off. Also, I can see how useful writing my own job description can be used with my clients to widen job sector ideas to consider. So excellent, that the idea of taking an activity, doing it yourself and sharing it with your clients to help them expand and their expectations is fantastic, isn't it? I'm really pleased with that. And Samantha has said, I'm really aware of time now, we're nearly out of time. I think it's reminding myself to achieve goals, you need to take things in bite-sized pieces so that each smaller goal is achievable and helps you to build the confidence to keep going. It's about being realistic about what you can achieve day to day towards the wider goal. And it's so true, isn't it? We do this with our clients all the time, but we sometimes forget to do it with ourselves, making those goals achievable but stretching at the same time.
Can I just respond? Thank you. Absolutely, that's true. And trying to avoid looking at the overwhelmingly big stuff too much, you know, not allowing yourself to be overwhelmed. What Ethelene was talking about, the job description exercise, I sometimes get clients to draw two circles, you know, Venn diagrams where two circles overlap. The first circle is what they offer, who they are, and then the second circle is their job at the moment, and get them to sort of sketch impressionistic how far they overlap, and it shows them visually what might be left out, how they could bring it in. So you might want to try that. Well, it's quite a simple exercise, but it can be powerful.
Excellent, thank you. Well, I'm really disappointed, not disappointed in the session, it's been wonderful, but disappointed that our hour is up. So we're going to have to wrap the session up here, but can I just take the opportunity, Jane, to really thank you for today's session. It's been really interactive and engaging, and we've got lots of comments already on how useful people have found it to be. So thank you so much. And as you can see, I'm sure you can see the chat as well, Jane. There's lots of thank yous. It's been fantastic, first class. It's been amazing, all of those comments there. So thank you very much for that. For those of you who are joining us, or I did say at the start we were going to talk about some more of the sessions that we've got coming up. We do have some more sessions coming up over the following weeks, one of which will be, and I've had a message off one of you around the session we've done on the Introduction to Learning with the IEP and using the learning management system. We had a session in August. By popular demand, we are running that session again in October. So on the 14th of October, that session will be happening live. We have a variety of other sessions coming up over the coming weeks as well. We have Nemo Shaw rejoining us next Wednesday to do the last in his series of 3 live learn lunches. So please do have a look at the schedule. The Learning Network e-bulletin has come out today, and that has some more of the sessions on. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for engaging with the breakout sessions and the activities as well. And thank you once again, Jane and Tony, for running a fantastic session for us. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great week. And as ever, let us know if there's anything else we can help with. Thank you.